What is your perspective on trauma and how do we move forward from it?
Great question, Aaron. Is it Aaron or Aaron?
Aaron.
Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that question. Um, very very complex question,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll start by saying a lot of times we will go to comparison of trauma. My trauma is worse than your trauma, so
Mm-hmm.
that means I get to be more beat up than you are from this, and that's not the case. Comparison is a thief of joy. So we don't want to compare. If someone has had a trauma, that is their situation, that is their reality, that is their trauma, and you should never compare your trauma to someone else's trauma. I hear people say all the time, like, "Yeah, I'm going through this divorce, but it sucks, it hurts, but yeah, at least I wasn't like physically abused."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Hey, stop comparing.
Yeah.
Like, you got hurt. You're going through something that's tough and it sucks right now. You've gotten the nope. You will get to the hope, but don't compare your trauma to other people's trauma. Don't downplay what you've gone through."
Mm-hmm.
How do we move forward from that? Or I guess what is trauma to begin with? It's when you have a preset boundary that somebody else crosses.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else crosses that line. That's a trauma. It doesn't matter what that line is that's crossed. That was your preset boundary. Someone crossed it. That's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Comes in many shapes, forms, and sizes, but it all hurts. It all hurts. So how do you move forward from this? And I actually saw this the other day. When you look at any superhero movie, there's a superhero, and for the superhero, there has to be some type of villain.
Mm-hmm.
The screenwrite is almost the same for every single superhero movie. Someone's gonna reach out and be like, "No, not in this one." I'll be like, "Oh darn, you
Yeah.
got me." But the superhero story tends to be that some shape or form that this person was orphaned. They lost their family, they had isolation, and then the villain story is somewhat similar, but they tend to have a scar, like a visible scar that you can see, like signifying that they were significantly abused.
Mm.
Both of them had traumas. The superhero then says, "I'm going to do my work so that nobody else can experience the trauma that I had to go through. So I'm willing to completely sacrifice my life to prevent anyone else from doing this or having this happen to them." Where the villain says, "Because I got hurt, I'm going to go and hurt everybody else
Mm.
in there," right? So we don't want to be the villain. We don't want to go and use the Hammurabi code, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. We're not going to go out and traumatize people because we've been traumatized. And I don't think that's ever the goal or the
It's
intention.
like
It's
subconscious.
subconscious, and it can happen. But what we can do is start to turn that into something different. We can start to say, no, no, this might be the nope or the obstacle that I was delivered to guide me. This rejection is maybe a redirection. I'm being redirected into a passion where I can go and help people. I can go and help people prevent this thing from happening. And I think when we look at these really great success stories, a lot of times that are long-term successful, we see what they did in order to help society because of the struggles that they went through.
Mm-hmm.
Robin Williams is a great example.
Mm.
Phenomenal actor. I didn't know this, but he was paid $8 million per movie that he was on.
Wow.
When he was asked to be the voice in Aladdin, he took a significant pay cut so that he could leave something behind for his children and his grandchildren
Mm.
to like further appreciate. Whenever he was given a role, he would make sure that wherever they were shooting, that homeless population in that area, that I don't know the percentage, but a certain percentage of them were hired to be on that film as background actors or
Wow.
actresses. So his legacy is going to live on.
Mm-hmm.
But there was trauma that he had in his life that then led him to say, "Hey, even though I'm making $8 million per movie that I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure that these people that are sleeping on the streets are going to get some of this."
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing is let's use that now in a positive way. And then the last step of, and maybe this isn't the best time to say it because it was how do I move forward from it, and this tends to be the last step, but I think is the highest return on your investment of time and energy, it's forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of misconceptions with forgiveness. With forgiveness, you're not giving permission for you to be hurt again. You're not giving permission for that person or event to hurt you. You're giving yourself permission to move on
Mm-hmm.
from that event. And when you do that, your perspective also starts to change. And you start to see that situation from a different light, where maybe that person or that event, you start to see that, oh man, I wonder what happened in their life that brought them to this point that they had to hurt me that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like you start to have empathy for that person that hurt you, that person that you thought that ruined your life, that person that you, and this is a strong word, but that person that you hate, you actually start to feel for them. Forgiveness is powerful. It is hard to do. Oftentimes you have to do it before you're ready to do it. It's very challenging. And in Hope Coaching, it's one of the last steps that we
Mm-hmm.
get to. And some people never do it.
Yeah.
They decide that carrying this weight and keeping this baggage is better for me than going into forgiveness, because I'm still really challenged by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope at some point that they are ready for that, because forgiveness, and it's quoted in the book Hope Not Nope of this, is that when we have traumas, they tend to be this like this weight that's holding us down. It's like doing a back squat with all this weight. It's just pushing you down, and you're trying to push back up against it, and you're fighting, but the weight's winning. The weight is just winning. It's pushing you down. And you decide, you know what? I can get this bar off my back.
Yeah.
I can throw it behind me. Now that 300, 400, 500 pounds, whatever that weight is, now you get to stand up freely.
Mm-hmm.
And when you stand up freely, you're going to feel this weightlessness that you haven't felt since that bar has been on your back. It's challenging, it's difficult, but it will completely shape you into the person that you're intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like forgiveness is key, but it's hard to get there.
Yeah. Forgiveness is so hard. I remember going through a situation, and I look back on it now, and I can honestly say it was probably one of the hardest things I'd ever gone through. But during the time, I had thought I had already gone through all of my trauma. I thought that whether it be my childhood or my young adult years or whatever, like I thought that that was like the trauma. But then I had a personal friend kind of like walk out on me basically. And that friend was like the one that knew all the stuff, right? And so that that trauma was so hard, but I didn't get to a place of forgiveness for a while. But from the time they walked out, I was like, no, I forgive them. No, I forgive them. No, I forgive them. When in reality, I was like you said, I was still in the bottom of the squat, and I was telling myself, I forgive them because didn't want like I didn't want to go through it. I just
Mhm.
wanted to be like, oh no, I forgive them and like brush it off. But I had to really like go through like why they hurt me, why it was affecting me, what beliefs I was believing. Or even like there was a moment where I was like, if our friendship would have continued, this could have happened. And like I had to mourn like future trauma that could have happened, right? Like there were so many layers to this situation that I went through. But I got to a place where I really realized that even though I kept saying that I forgave the person, I hadn't actually let go of the
Mm.
person. Um, and so I got to this place where I was really just like finally like at my ends. It had been like probably 2 years, if not more, since the situation had initially happened. And I was like, I wrote them a letter that I never sent them, but I
Mhm.
wrote them a letter explaining all the ways that they hurt me, but all the ways that I hurt them.
Mm.
I had to own that I also hurt them. But then at the end of it, I was like, despite all of this, I do forgive you because you can't hold this over me anymore. And the more that I held on to the lack of forgiveness or the trying to brush it off, like the more I was in the bottom of that squat, the more I let them dictate how I was acting to other people, how I was trusting other people, the relationships that I was in. And even like my work and my eating, like all of that was being affected because I really hadn't forgiven and let go of that person. And I think that there was this like idea that I had that if I forgave them, that meant that I was keeping the door open to become best friends with them again. But I realized that that pressure of like not burning a bridge or keeping the door open or constantly reaching out to like check in on them, even though like they made it clear that they didn't. I mean, they didn't make it clear in the sense of they didn't tell me to stop reaching out. They just basically ghosted me. But like instead of trying to force it, I finally like I let go and I realized I can forgive them, but I don't have to be their best friend ever again. I don't need them in my life consistently. I don't need them to control, like I was letting them control me even though they weren't even in my life anymore. And like I don't know, for me like forgiveness was so key in my healing journey. But you do have to have courage to forgive. Like forgiveness is hard. I don't want to say it's easy by any
Mm.
means. It took me multiple years to forgive this one situation, and I know, and not to compare, but I know people have been through worse trauma than I have been. But I do believe that forgiveness is the most freed that you'll ever be in this life. If you can truly forgive, you'll be the most free and you'll be the most healed and you'll become the person that you're intended to be because of that.
Yeah. First, thank you for sharing, because I know it's a hurtful
Yeah.
but triumphant story. But I want to point out everything you said in there was extremely important. But there's one thing I really want to touch on that you said, I never sent her the letter. Right? We perceive that forgiveness as calling that person
Right.
or getting a dinner with them and making it this big event of candle dinner and I forgive you.
It's
No,
just not
it's
necessary.
not necessary, and it's not for that person.
Hmm.
Like forgiveness is it's selfish,
Hmm.
but it's a good selfish to have. It's for you. So write that letter. And what I like to have people do is they proclaim that forgiveness while seeing themselves in a mirror
Mm.
or recording it in a safe thing that's just for them, almost as like having a witness
Mm.
of that forgiveness for themselves. And I've been looking for opportunities to put this analogy in during this entire recording, and now is the time.
Yes,
But
tell
I'm
us the
like, do we
analogy.
build up the suspense and then go for it? But love learning about animals.
Hmm.
Learned the other day that there's one bird that attacks eagles, and it's a crow. I don't know why a crow attacks an eagle. It's like kind of like, wow, talk about courage. Like it's like David Goliath. Like, why is this crow attacking the eagle?
Hmm.
But the eagle knows I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm faster than you. The eagle does not attack back physically. What it does, because the crow's attacking like the backside of the eagle just flies up as high as it can because it knows that the crow can't withstand the pressure of being that high.
Mm.
So as the eagle's getting attacked, it overcomes by elevating to a new level that the thing that's attacking it has to go to a lower level and get out of the picture.
Hmm.
And that's what's happening with forgiveness. That event, that person, whatever that trauma that had happened, that's the crow attacking you. If you stay in that same spot, the crow's going to keep attacking you. And then you have to decide, how are you going to attack it?
Hmm.
Where instead, you can fly to a whole new height, get to a whole new elevation, and that crow's going to have to get off your back.
100%. I think that just to add on to that, I love eagles. This past year, I feel like I've seen like 30 of them randomly,
Yeah.
which is pretty bizarre for where we live in the country, but I feel like they're stalking me. But which I'm not complaining. They're so beautiful. But as you were saying that, and I was going to mention this earlier, but then I was like, ah, no, but it came back up, so I'm going to say it. But I think that in this world, people who have faced trauma can get this quote unquote like victim mentality. And I will say like you are a victim to some sort of trauma, but you don't have to live in that mentality. And we don't know this eagle's story,
Mhm.
right? But this eagle was being attacked but was not submitting to the victim mentality and instead rose above and empowered themselves and eventually like they were the one victorious, right? And so I think that whatever trauma you've been through, or the reality is you may face trauma after you listen to this. You don't have to submit to this like woe is me attitude. You have the opportunity. Yes, you do need to process it. Yes, you do need to mourn or struggle or whatever. Like there is a process to it, but you don't need to stay within this victim negative mentality, because you are a whole person and you are a gift, and you can be empowered to live a great life no matter what you've been through. You have an opportunity to live a great life ahead of you. Your life is not over, and whatever trauma you've been through, like your life is not over. Your life is beginning. And so be hopeful, become that eagle, and go fly, go soar.
Yeah, I have nothing to add on to that. That was beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Dylan. And so that was our last question, Aaron. Thank you for that question, because I feel like it really blessed us to be able to kind of talk about it, and we're so thankful for it.